To select the nominees for this category, I tried to balance my objective and subjective views of each title. I composed a longer list of games that I truly enjoyed, and then filtered those down by which games achieved what they tried to do to the greatest degree. This filtration resulted in the following countdown. The next 7 games are those that most efficiently accomplished their goals based on price, quality of the game mechanics, and what effect the experience had on me. They are my favorite games of 2013.
Now, let the killing begin.
After the cheery visuals, lighthearted action, and somewhat simplistic gameplay of Lollipop Chainsaw, it seemed that Suda51 went back to the drawing board. Combining the darkness of Killer 7 with the intense action of No More Heroes, Killer is Dead is Suda finally getting back to his roots after his uncharacteristically tame Lollipop Chainsaw and Shadows of the Damned. Dark, bloody, and nonsensically written, Killer is Dead is the most Suda game in years. It's also the most distinctly Japanese game of the year, with over-the-top characters, some chuckle-worthy dialogue, and insane boss fights, highlighted by a demonic locomotive. To top it off, Killer is Dead is Grasshopper's best game since the first No More Heroes, and the most satisfying title to play in the studio's illustrious history. "2013 managed to cram in a few major horror releases and many more small ones, and while it isn't as nerve-shreddingly relentless as Dead Space 3, nor as disturbing as A Machine for Pigs, Outlast is more polished than the former, scarier than the latter, and superior to both. Indie developer Red Barrels has added a few nifty twists to the passive horror genre, which I define as non-combat horror games, like this, Amnesia, and Slender. These include parkour elements, limited visibility time, and perhaps most genius of all, the ability to look behind you while running, and you'll be running a lot. For the first 2/3 of the game, Outlast proves again that the human mind is scarier than almost anything else, throwing you up against an entire facility's worth of crazed patients. But in that final act, while the scares are pared down a bit, the excellent storyline comes to a head, facilitating a rapid departure in both tone and setting that requires you to ignore the run-and-hide instinct that was drilled into you for the 4 preceding hours. Lastly, the graphics deserve a mention. Not only does it look great for an indie game, it is arguably the most technically impressive use of the Unreal Engine 3 so far, with incredibly high-res textures that stream instantaneously, never displaying any of the infamous Unreal load-in. For only $20, you really can't go wrong if you're looking for a few good scares tied together by a surprisingly good yarn. I had anticipated this spot on the list as being a battle between Need for Speed rivals and Grid 2, but the fact that Ghost released the worst PC port since Resident Evil 4 made the choice a whole lot easier. A racing sim for those who don't like racing sims. Codemasters' latest delivers on nearly all fronts. Story is not an area racing games are generally known for, but the one provided is sufficiently integrated into the single-player structure to make perfect sense in the context of the game. Each vehicle feels unique, as well as weighty enough that you must be very, very careful how you drive. Drift too hard or too long in a rear-wheel drive vehicle and you'll spin out. Make contact with anything in a Formula 1 car and you'll require a flashback to extricate yourself. And while the multiplayer servers seem to be a bit empty these days, Grid 2 provides more than enough solo content to keep gearheads satisfied for months on end. Before 2013, Starbreeze was known mainly for Vin Diesel simulators and unwelcome reboots of classic RTS RPG franchises. Then along comes Swedish filmmaker Joseph Fares, the mastermind behind one of the year's most refreshing experiences, who proves that he's as competent directing games as movies. Even the control scheme makes a difference. The ingenious idea of controlling the brothers independently with the joysticks takes some getting used to, but it makes you care not only about the characters, but the relationship between them, both emotional and physical. That it gently forces you to use your mind to manipulate the characters' motions to solve puzzles is just icing. The gameplay and storytelling are very tightly intertwined, making Brothers one of the purest examples of interactive storytelling. After creating the excellent Minerva's Den DLC for Bioshock 2, 4 game designers formed the Fulbright Company. Gone Home is their first commercial release, and I don't think I've ever played a game that I could relate with more strongly. Weaving a heartbreaking tale of the experience of being a teenager, Fulbright has made an awesome entry in the adventure genre that can stand proudly alongside the likes of Dear Esther and The Walking Dead. And like those titles, it's the little things that make Gone Home special. Street Fighter II move lists, for example, or a bottle of whiskey hidden in the father's workplace. And of course, that little sister who you come to love without ever laying eyes on. I disagree with the idea that this is one of the top 10 games of the generation, as well as the idea that this is even Naughty Dog's best work. Nevertheless, there is no denying that The Last of Us provides an amazingly emotional ride that's as scary as Outlast and gut-wrenching as The Walking Dead. Naughty Dog has once again proved that they are masters of the cinematic action-adventure, in every way superior to David Cage's overcooked, QTE-riddled pretensions to the Hollywood throne. The AI and combat in The Last of Us are highly unforgiving, which when combined with the real-time crafting and healing system, adds to the already palpable tension. With a world this real and characters this compelling, this title adheres so strongly to its own vision that any and all reminders that you're simply playing a game come off as major distractions. Any glitch is game-breaking, every loading screen unforgivable. This, more than anything, is a demonstration of the power of this creation, and one can only imagine what miracles Naughty Dog will be able to perform on next-gen hardware. Let's just hope that their next title doesn't play things quite so safely. Metro 2033 was a flawed gem, boasting top-notch visuals, storytelling, and atmosphere, but was hamstrung by a clumsy interface and underpowered weaponry. 3 years later, 4A Games has secured its position as a studio to watch, making improvements in virtually every aspect of the game. Destructible light sources make for deeper, more player-driven combat, allowing players to stealth or blast their way through almost every encounter. The proprietary engine has been fully optimized on both consoles and PC, maintaining a smooth frame rate while looking every bit as good as its predecessor. Picking up where 2033's evil ending left off, the story still has its wacky moments, but puts more focus on the characters this time, telling a much more human tale about internal strife in the middle of the safe haven known as D6. It also throws a great curveball towards the end that somehow makes the world seem that much darker and more hostile. Managing to pack in a compelling story, oppressive atmosphere, and superior gameplay, this is one of the best single-player shooters ever made. While the prior Tomb Raider games weren't bad, I think many would agree that the series was getting stale and was in dire need of a revival. Something to get people interested and regain the respect the brand once demanded. Crystal Dynamics threw out the convoluted story and overly sexualized Lara Croft, replacing them with a harrowing, brutal tale of adventure, mysticism, and above all, survival. Though it takes a few cues from Uncharted, the new Tomb Raider always feels like a Tomb Raider game, with just as much, if not more, emphasis on exploration than combat, which by itself is more than enough to move it out of the shadow of Naughty Dog's trilogy. The stunningly realized island of Yamatai is intricately designed to take full advantage of the tools Lara has at her disposal, and never feels like it's pandering to the player's actions. But remarkably, it never looks like it was built by a team of level designers, feeling completely like a natural world filled with danger and mystery. In other words, it's the perfect setting for a reboot of one of gaming's most important franchises. This is not only the best entry in the series, it's also the best action-adventure title since Uncharted 2. The preceding group of games represented my somewhat limited view of the pinnacle of gaming in 2013. That said, the next and last 3 titles in the list are the best of the best, the truly elite products that defined the most important and significant year in gaming since 2007. Games 10 through 4 each excelled in some way. The top 3 excel in a great many ways, be it visuals, writing, gameplay, or direction, leading to titles that every gamer, regardless of console ownership or genre preference, owes it to themselves to experience. After the mild disappointment that was Assassin's Creed 3, I didn't have too much hope for the next annual installment of this venerable franchise, something that not even pirates could wash away. Once I sat down with the game, however, everything changed. The naval combat, my least favorite gameplay mechanic of AC3, is now on the same level as the sneaking and stabbing. Amassing a fleet of wholly unrealistic strength is peerlessly satisfying, as is using said fleet to sink the 4 legendary ships that roam the seas. But Black Flag does so much more. Meeting famous figures like Anne Bonny and Blackbeard allows for some truly awesome character moments, and the game's lush jungles and lovingly rendered whales bring as much eye candy as any other title this year. Even the modern-day storyline is okay, though not nearly as interesting as Desmond's journey in AC3. Black Flag's modern component is packed with just enough self-aware humor to keep it from feeling stale. Against all my expectations, Ubisoft Montreal has made the best Assassin's Creed title since Assassin's Creed 2, a game whose quality Black Flag even arguably surpasses. That fact alone guaranteed it a spot on this list, but the sheer amount of interesting side quests, story elements, and Easter eggs makes this game something the developers should be proud of. There is no getting around the fact that my choosing this to be this high on the list will be controversial, but I will proudly stand by my decision. Saints Row the Third was a great game with a case of identity crisis, constantly flip-flopping between the zaniest parts of Saints Row 2 and the gritty and bland GTA impersonation of the first. Saints Row 4 turns the insanity dial up to 11 and never looks back. The dialogue is pitch perfect, every character displaying sharp, snappy wit that wouldn't be out of place in a Joss Whedon or Quentin Tarantino flick. And while the overarching storyline steals liberally from numerous other sources, it always feels like an homage rather than a ripoff. The plot also provides a perfect excuse for the game's most important new gameplay mechanic: superpowers, ranging from lightning speed to jumps that you land with street-sweeping nuclear fury, all of which succeed in making even the simple task of traveling between side missions a supreme pleasure. There are, of course, those of you who will maintain that The Last of Us or GTA 5 are still the superior games, and maybe you're right. But having played both of those titles from beginning to end, I can safely say that Saints Row 4 is hands down the most fun I had with a video game in 2013. I said, boys are back in town. And the winner is...
Will the circle be unbroken by and by, is a better home awaiting in the sky, oh, in the sky.
Yes, one certainly is. By expanding upon the gameplay of the original 2007 masterpiece, Infinite's new gameplay mechanics, particularly the thrilling skylines, add depth whose absence was BioShock's biggest flaw. Combined with the more satisfying combat, one could argue that Infinite is in fact the superior game. It goes without saying that Columbia is just as exquisitely detailed as Rapture, merging seamlessly with this shocking storyline to create an experience whose immersion reaches new heights for the genre. But the game's greatest achievement is Elizabeth, who is, beyond a shadow of doubt, the most advanced, most human NPC ever created, brought to life by world-class programming and a breathtaking performance by Courtney Draper. Songbird also makes a truly terrifying omnipresence. Mysterious and imaginatively designed, it always seems to show up at the least opportune time. Its piercing shriek breaking any composure you might have picked up since your last meeting. And Comstock, though admittedly unable to hold a candle to Andrew Ryan, is still a great antagonist. His religious zealotry is his main distinction, and isn't quite intense enough to make him an entirely bad person. But at the same time, it is strong enough to press home the idea that he doesn't deserve redemption. Game writer-director extraordinaire Ken Levine has done it again, creating a career-high experience that is, quite simply, incredible. It is my favorite single-player FPS of all time, and my Game of the Year for 2013.
Be unbroken by and by, oh, by and by is a better home away in the sky, oh, in the sky.
I hope you have enjoyed my video presentation of my favorite games of 2013, as well as all my Let's Plays that I've done up to this point. We're now a bit closer to the end of the Halo series and are in the midst of the next great leap forward in the industry. Forget the pointless Xbox One versus PlayStation 4 debate, and just be grateful that so many companies devote themselves to creating products solely to entertain you. I wish you all the best of luck in the coming year, and remember to have fun in another great year of gaming. As Bungie would say, see you Starside.